Now we are 2 days removed from this story. Remember, yesterday we also brought you that new video TMZ obtained, both of where Diddy is, at least briefly, there, that cell phone video of him walking outside of the airport there in Miami. And then we got video TMZ obtained inside the Holmby Hills mansion, and you could see so much of his kind of personal items strewn about in what looked like a bedroom and what looked like kind of a personal library as well. I want to put this tweet up here. That's the TMZ video that we found. I believe this was obtained by them Monday night of Diddy kind of just loitering and lingering there. It seems like he's on the phone outside of Miami's airport as well. So let's get the latest on this yet again. We've been relying on the really intrepid reporting of legal affairs journalist Meghann Cuniff. We're going to bring her in just a moment. That's the video, remember, of inside of the Holmby Hills mansion. And you can see just really how investigators and agents really kind of tore through this room there, kind of trying to find what they were looking to find as part of this investigation. So they kind of made a mess. In the meantime here, let's bring in Meghann Cuniff with the latest. We haven't spoken with her, I believe, since Monday, and she joins me. Meghann, good to see you. I know you've been all over everywhere talking about this story. And we have been talking about this in the newsroom amongst ourselves, that there really hasn't been many new details over the last, 3 days now. The newest piece of information we got yesterday was a statement by one of Diddy's lawyers and attorneys, really taking these federal agents to task over their quote-unquote use of excessive force. What did you make of that statement, Meghann?
Right. I mean, it looks like they're trying to go on the offensive through their defensive effort. And of course, that's a common complaint that we hear in America about the rise in militarization of law enforcement everywhere, and the sheer use of force that they use in these raids. It's certainly not the first time that I've seen it in a federal investigation. There was a LA public corruption investigation that involved federal agents, and an attorney in LA who was targeted actually filed a proposed class action lawsuit over the raid that happened at his house that really details some pretty harrowing things that he says happened to his kids. So this is not at all unique, and I think law enforcement's response would just be it's a public safety issue, and especially with a mansion and a property of that size, it would be just standard for them to do this and show that use of force. But I think this kind of military style police force that we have in the United States does raise some eyebrows sometimes, and I think the lawyer knows how to focus on that, to try to focus on that and get the attention away from his client and the fact that there was probable cause to raid his house in a sex trafficking investigation.
Hey, Meghann, I remember you tweeted, you were kind of calling into question or raising some doubts about the level of involvement from that attorney that put out the statement, Aaron Dyer. Tell us more about, I guess, Diddy's defense team. Why did you call that into question? You indicated in your tweet that, well, he wasn't really involved, yet he put out this pretty lengthy statement in defense. How are we to interpret that, do you think?
Yeah, and I meant that to mean that before in the civil cases, he wasn't involved at all. And now that he's been involved, it just signifies that they're hiring people who haven't experience in federal criminal investigations. And that's what he is. So for him to not be involved in the civil cases before this, I think is standard. But I also think what his new involvement shows is just how this is becoming a big deal for Diddy. And he understands that it's not so much a public relations game anymore, but an investigation in a criminal case that he needs to deal with. And what I think what's happening with Aaron Dwyer is him being with Pillsbury. It's a big law firm, one of the big law firms in the United States. He's local in Los Angeles, so for federal agents to be searching his home in Los Angeles here, the case is out of the Southern District of New York, but this search warrant, and I've been told this by people who've dealt with this before, this search warrant would have been approved by a U.S. magistrate judge in Los Angeles in the Central District of California. And the same with the search warrant in Miami. It would be the Southern District of New York federal prosecutors writing this up and getting the warrant. But the warrant that was served in Miami also would have been approved by a magistrate judge there in the federal court in Florida that encompasses Miami. So it would be standard for Diddy to want to have local counsel. And Aaron is the co-chair of his law firm's global corporate investigations and white collar unit, which indicates investigations. And I think that's an important distinction because he has not been charged with a crime. And it seems like they should be, at least from a criminal defense standpoint, still be in the point of trying to hold off any criminal indictment whatsoever. And that seems like that's what Aaron's background is in.
I see. And you also kind of noted as well that the fact that Diddy's team hired him is a BFD, and I'll let users and viewers, they know what that stands for. Meghann, in the meantime here, we have more questions for you as well. We're learning more of who these people, who their identities were that were detained in, the run-up, not the run-up, but as the raids themselves were going on. So one, Brendan Paul. Who is that? We're learning some reports that he is allegedly Diddy's drug mule who was arrested. We've also heard reports Diddy may have been there when Paul was taken into custody. So Brendan Paul, what do we know about him?
This was at the Miami airport the day of the raids, and he was arrested on drug possession charges, and he was boarding or about to board Diddy's private jet there at the airport that he was arrested at, and I don't have details on what agents are saying about whether this is connected to a larger investigation, but I think what it really shows is that they were keeping an eye on them as they were boarding the jet. I mean, with them not being charged with a crime, there's no way that they can restrict his movement like this. But I mean, they can kind of follow anyone if they're out in public like this. So it's pretty obvious that they were keeping a close eye on Diddy and the in the assistant as this was going on. And I think this just shows that there's mounting scrutiny and people are watching them.
Yeah, I mean, for Brendan Paul to be detained there on the tarmac, in front of Diddy's plane there, and you see this photo TMZ obtained. The New York Post has this piece out. Who is Brendan Paul, Diddy's alleged drug mule, arrested there at Miami's airport? So we'll just have to follow that lead there in this story. I want to ask, too, essentially about Diddy's whereabouts right now. I guess no one really knows that, do they? Or do people have inclinations, so to speak? And I imagine if you're a public figure, you have a lot of public appearances coming up. So I can imagine his schedule will be impacted by all of this, will it not?
Yeah, I mean, there was already a big groundswell of people trying to disassociate from him. We saw a pretty public departure between him and the label for some liquor brands that he had, and it was all about his the sex trafficking allegations and the lawsuits that had started. So I think this is just going to accelerate that even more. And I mean, what's got to be happening is he's got to be meeting with his team and just trying to figure out what is the game plan here, because it seemed to me, just as somebody who's been following this, that there was, a mounting PR campaign coming against these lawsuits, that he's been on the offensive from the beginning, but he'd hired Sean Hawley, who's an experienced celebrity attorney in Los Angeles, who has a lot of courtroom experience, but is also, very experienced in the public relations game. And I think the fact that he then went and hired Aaron Dwyer just shows that he understands, he needs somebody who has real federal experience and is going to be in there working on the, trying to thwart any kind of criminal indictment.
So, yeah, I think it's important because where this story has kind of transitioned into is kind of talking about, Diddy's entourage, so to speak. Who does he acquaint himself with on a day-to-day basis, Meghann? Kind of who's in his squad, so to speak, and how they are going to be or already are somewhat implicated in all of this as well, including Young Miami. We're seeing her name pop up a lot. And if you could, who is that? I want to put up this tweet here as well from Complex. Young Miami is being accused of transporting pink cocaine to Diddy amid his recent legal issues. She is the City Girls rapper, and she was named in an amended lawsuit from Rodney Lil Rod Jones, who filed a sexual assault lawsuit against Diddy last month. So does she tie in at all, Meghann, to what happened in Miami and LA on Monday?
You know, I don't know, but I think there are so many allegations, especially in the Rodney Jones lawsuit, that I don't think something like that is what investigators would be focusing on, especially in a sex trafficking allegation. I did see a report from Rolling Stone has cited their own sources saying that the law enforcement officials have interviewed 4 Jane Does and 1 John Doe. And I think what they would be looking for here is supposed victims of this sex trafficking ring and people that they can hang charges around and bring a whole case around. So I'm not sure drug transportation, maybe that's if they are bringing a racketeering case, which Rolling Stone sources have said that this is part of a racketeering RICO investigation. Drug transportation would, of course, be part of that. But I think there's just so much in these lawsuits that it's a little hard to think that all of it is part of it. And I really think that this the lawsuit to look at where all of this probably started from is Cassie's lawsuit, and then also Doug Wigder's law firm, which represented Cassie, and then currently has a lawsuit against Diddy in federal court. If you just look at their experience and all the cases that they've done and their crossover between civil and criminal case experience, it seems like they're the ones who are kind of, putting this forward and getting potential victims in front of law enforcement.
Yeah, I mean, that would be quite something if, Cassie's allegations kind of started all of this, and it just kind of goes on from here. And in the meantime as well, there's a lot of conspiracy theories swirling out there about all of this. We're not going to give them oxygen here on Live Now, but they're out there, and a lot of fans, a lot of detractors of Diddy have a lot of questions, and we'll have to continue to follow this. Meghann Cuniff, as always, can't thank you enough. We'll talk soon.
Thanks so much. Have a good night.